So you got a client that can only pre-qualify for 150,000, but they want to live in Lake Travis. What is the problem with that particular scenario with your knowledge of the Austin area?
Besides the fact there's no properties out there on the lake for $150,000, okay?
So take a little bit further. So what would you do as an agent?
Well, I'm going to have to sit down and bring you into reality, okay?
That's part of the agent's job.
Yes, it's like, well, you only qualify for 150 for whatever the reason is. And now the qualifying process is not really to do with their credit so much, it's more to do with their income.
Exactly.
Okay, income predicts how much money you make, predicts how much you can afford. Of course, credit has an issue on it.
Exactly.
Because if your credit's not that good, you're going to have to pay a higher interest rate in most cases. So a certain amount, like if you say getting a 7% loan, you can qualify for 150,000. Where if you get 6, you might qualify for 175. So credit has some bearing on it, but it's based on your income.
Right.
Okay. So the thing is, I can't go show you something that doesn't exist, can I?
No.
Okay.
So what would you do with a client like that?
I'm going to sit down and explain to them first that it just doesn't exist, right?
And then you would show them other places in town.
Well, sure. I'm going to try to find them something as close as I can to what they want for the 150.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe I can get them, a mile or 2 miles from Lake Travis.
Ah.
Okay. Get them somewhere close. Get them in the right school district. Okay. But say on the outskirts of it, where they're not up there with the $500,000 houses.
Right.
Okay? Because they just can't afford it.
Exactly.
So again, that all goes back down to the knowledge and experience of your agent in it.
Right.
So it goes back to that. And I'm glad you brought that up, though. It's a very good point, because we talked last time about qualifying and the importance of it. Okay? I'd be wasting your time if you were the buyer, and be wasting my time if I went out and started showing you properties that you couldn't afford.
Exactly.
Okay, we're right back to that, isn't it?
Exactly.
Okay? So why would I want to do that? Why would you want to do that?
Right.
It's a waste of everybody's time.
Right.
And I'm not saying, it's just we need to work smart here. We need to do what we need to do. We need to take you out and show you properties that fit your needs.
After the agent has sat in the office, narrowing it down with the computer, and then access to the internet, the multiple listing service, and from there you go out with the agent as the buyer, the client, after you've seen maybe, what do you think, about 2-3 houses, something of that nature?
You might have looked at 25 on the internet, but we narrowed it down to maybe 3 to 5 properties.
Okay.
Okay, that's the beauty of the internet.
Okay, and then what is the next step? So now the client's
go out and
here.
Physically see the house.
Okay, and so you go out to the house, and then as the buyer, not being that knowledgeable about little problems at the house, that's where the agent comes in. Maybe he's pointing out little things, or maybe not.
No, not really.
Okay, tell me about it.
Okay,
what happens next?
We're real estate agents. We are not home inspectors.
Okay.
It's very important. There's a huge difference between home inspectors and real estate agents. Okay.
So
we're going to go out and look at the property. And yes, depending on the experience of the agent, they might be able to point out some things, which kind of takes us. We're kind of jumping ahead here a little bit, okay? Because what we have to do next is we find the property. Once we find the property, we're going to get it inspected after we have what we call a contract. Okay? Once we put an offer in, the seller's accepted it, everybody's agreed to the terms, the buyer is going to have a time period there to get the property inspected. We'll come to that in some couple of future episodes, maybe.
Right.
Okay? Where we're at now, though, is we're looking at property.
Exactly.
Okay? And I will point out anything that I feel like may need some attention or an issue with the property. Okay? But again, I'm not an inspector.
Right.
Okay? So you're going to make the decision whether to purchase or not.
Exactly.
My job is to show you the properties and then help you negotiate, which basically takes us into finding you that right property. Once you find that property, we're going to probably go back to the office, and we're going to sit down and we're going to decide. We're going to do a CMA on that property. Remember we talked about that before? Comparative market analysis.
Exactly.
And I'm going to look at, I look at listing price like this. This is a price that the seller would like to get. I look at it as a buyer's agent, a place to start negotiations. Does that make sense?
Yes.
They're wanting 150 for it. I'm going to go in and look at the property, and we're going to do the same thing the listing agent did. look at the area, see what we feel like, in my buyer's best interest, what would be a fair price for that property. It may be 150, but it might be 140. Or we might find out it's more worth 160 and the seller is selling it 10,000 below market. We don't know that, though, if you don't have an agent, do you?
No,
so we're going to go back and we're going to look at all that. Based on that information, we're going to put in an offer. Right? That's just the sales price, though. Sales price is only the place to start. It's one of the first things on the contract. After you get past the buyer's and the seller's name, description of the property, the next section in the contract is the sales price. So that's what we would discuss first in normal cases. What do we want to offer them for it? But in order to do that, we have to go back to our mortgage company, because on the contract itself, it not only states the sales price, but it also says they're going to finance this amount and pay this amount down. Now, how would you even know that if you hadn't been to the mortgage company first?
That's right.
You see? So we couldn't even really put in an offer. We don't know how to fill out the offer to the seller as far as how much we're going to pay down, what we're going to offer, what we qualify for in financing. So that's the first step. That's the first thing on the contract.
Right.
So once we get past that, after we do a CMA, and we have decided that this is the offer we want to put in, then we'll move on down the offer, which is actually the contract once everybody is signed. Right? At this point, that was just an offer. And I guess the next thing on the offer would be the title company. I'm thinking in my head here, looking down a contract in my mind, the next thing we come to is title company. Okay, the buyer, by the way, just so everybody knows, the buyer gets to choose the title company. So let's stop and talk about title companies for just a second. All title companies, this is the way I always explain it, are not created equal. And what I mean by that is you're going to get, the title company is the one that's going to research the history of the property to make sure that the seller is giving you what we call a clear title to the property. So when you buy it as a purchaser, as a seller, buyer, that you know that you are the true owner of the property. The seller had the legal right to sell it to you. There's no liens or what we call encumbrances. Encumbrances is anything that restricts the use of the property, either financially or deed restrictions, anything like that, which we can always talk about that forever. But we want to make sure that we get title policy, don't we? Okay, the title company is going to research that. Who picks the title company, though? It's federal law that the buyer gets to pick the title company.
All right, now we got about a minute to go before this show ends.
So okay, well, so we just we can come back to that and kind of pick up there on the next one. But very important, the buyer understands. And what I was trying to say are all title companies are not created equal. And I guess we can pick up on the next show on that one.
Definitely. That'll hopefully whet the interest of our real estate fans out there who want to know more about this whole process, because knowledge of real estate will really help you in some of the biggest investments of your life. So get that knowledge. And one way to do it is watch this show. This has been Spencer Properties Presents. I want to thank you for being with us today. I'm Larry Wessels, your host. I've been with Bill Spencer of Spencer Properties. Bill has been in real estate for over 21 years and is a broker and really knows what he's talking about. Join us again next time in this continuing series. Thank you. See you next time. Bye-bye.